You all for being here. Today, you might notice that if you saw advertised that we would have me, Rachel Berlinski, and our director, Frank Lipo, talking today. Unfortunately, Frank has laryngitis. So he's on the mend, but I asked him to kindly rest today. So our program will just be me and a little bit more free form than usual because I will be talking about some new donations that we've gotten to the museum recently. So I'm going to be going through kind of quickly and sort of generally a bunch of different items that are new to the museum. So I will move along here on our presentation and start off with the first piece that I'll be showing you today. And actually, with this piece, I think I want to say I wish everybody a meaningful Yom Kippur. So that is today, and that is talking about a new donation that we got from a group that was called Congregation Shir Ami. And I do hope that I am saying that right. This was a Jewish congregation that was formed in Oak Park to include people in the surrounding suburbs, the western suburbs, that focused on including families. They were very family oriented, and they were not led by a rabbi, so different people from the congregation would lead each different service, and they would have potlucks and different sorts of celebrations for all of these high holidays and the like. So this was donated to us recently by a woman named Terry Tennis, and she just gave us a little chunk of documents and correspondence, bylaws, and that sort of thing about this group. The group, to my understanding, and I don't think I mentioned this yet, it was formed in the late 1980s, and I think it only recently, or in recent years, dissolved. So what Terry told me was she gave me the documents that she had in her files that she was just looking to get rid of. And she said she had been talking with a lot of different people who used to be part of this congregation as well. So not to get too far ahead of ourselves, but I am hoping that we get some more information about this congregation in the near future as well. And it seems like something that obviously I didn't know about existed, and to be able to share more of the story of this congregation is going to be very exciting. So this was just a little bit of an introduction and into this group, a little introduction into this group. And I should also say, for most of the things that I'll be talking about today, and kind of with everything that comes into the museum, some people have a lot of information about the items that they're giving to us, and some people have maybe almost no information. If you find something in your house, or for whatever reason, we end up doing research, often just sort of to familiarize myself with whatever the thing is that has come in, or especially if we don't have much of a story behind the things, then we will end up looking at our resources, looking into other things to be able to tell more of a story behind the items that are given to us. And I'll plug this as well. I'm looking at one of our volunteers, Frank Fiorito, who is in the back of the research center here, currently doing some research on one of the collections that I'll be showing you later in today's program. So even as immediate as as immediately. You know, we're always trying to find out more about the pieces that we have, and especially when they come into us, just as they arrive. So this is a little bit about, again, some correspondence that we have and documents from Congregation Shir Ami. Next, I am very happy to report that lately we've been getting quite a few different things about River Forest. So yay, River Forest stories. These all that you see on the screen came to us from our volunteer, Eleanor Hansen, who I believe was head of the PTO at Lincoln School in River Forest. And she was definitely part of the PTO. I believe she was head of it during the time that her children were there in the 90s. So what you see here are some yearbooks that she gave to us from Lincoln School, and also from Lincoln School. Eleanor was part of putting together like this sort of magazine, literary book of poetry and I think jokes and different things that the students had written. So similar to a yearbook, but more of, writing. And I'll come back to that idea in the following slide as well. But we also she gave us yearbooks from Roosevelt Middle School at the time. So these are all, as far as I have seen, these are all unique and new to our collection. So we have a very broad and good collection of different yearbooks from different schools over time. Especially we have a full run of tabulas from OPRF High School recently, in recent months. And if you saw an earlier program of this, we featured when we got a donation from Trinity High School of an almost full run of their yearbooks as well. And over time, we've gotten here and there different ones from Roosevelt and from different schools. So we are piecing together a lot of these other different ones from elementary schools and other schools in the area. So these are very nice to have. And if that's a plug for anybody watching this to think about sharing some of the ones that you have from different schools and different time periods, then please let me know. What you also see on the screen is also from Eleanor Hansen. She or her family salvaged a folding chair from Washington School around the time that it was demolished. And this chair I want to use as a little bit of a teaser for a future Inside OPRF Museum as well, because I'll show you this today as sort of an artifact from River Forest schools, but the design of the folding chair is also tied to a person who lived in Oak Park or River Forest. I can't remember exactly which one, but we will find out in a future Inside OPRF Museum, because I will be talking about that item, not me. We'll have a guest speaker. So anyway, this is a little bit of a teaser for that. Next, I'll get back to Oak Park, I suppose, and talk about a collection that I talked about this more in depth in our virtual program last month regarding the pandemic and things that we collect today of things happening today to tell stories in the future. So this collection, I just want to highlight again because I think it's really special to have in these days. And the items in it are really cool to have as far as I'm concerned. I feel like a cool kid walking around with a bag of these empty vials of Moderna and Pfizer vaccines. So the Village of Oak Park and the former village manager, I believe, Kara Pavlicek, gave us some things related to the pandemic. So documents, photos, a face mask with the village logo on it, and a bunch of examples of these empty vials. So we'll be able to use these now and in the future to tell the story of what's happening to all of us at the moment. Next, I'll talk about a few items that came to us from Bill Dwyer. And if any of you recognize Bill Dwyer, he was a journalist for the Wednesday Journal. And he recently visited the museum to do some research and brought a donation of these. What you see on the left is literary tabulas. And I'm coming back to the idea of literary magazines because some of you may be familiar or maybe not that I don't know if this is still current, but especially in this time period, what you see here in the 30s, not only did OPRF High School have the Tabula yearbook, but they also had literary tabulas. So again, these are like poems and short stories and different things written by students at the time. And we have a really good amount of these, especially from this time period. So that fits into a much larger collection that we have of publications from the high school, which are all really exciting to explore if it's good to know that they are here. And one of these actually fit into, it's with this sort of thing, we definitely keep, 2 or 3 copies, if we have 2 or 3 copies of the 1930 literary tabula. But in that case, it's always exciting when we can fill in gaps. So we did not previously have the December 1934 literary tabula until today. So I get to put that in the gap. And that's exciting. Now, when Bill gave these to me, tucked away in the cover of one of these was a group of photos of a gentleman named Steve Linscott. And the story behind this, some of you might be familiar with. So in 1980, there was a young woman who was murdered and in Oak Park. I'm not terribly familiar with this story, so I'm just giving you a little bit of a teaser, or at least a little bit of my knowledge. So Steve Linscott was a neighbor of this woman who was killed, and he was a student at Bible college that was in Oak Park at the time, and he had a dream of what he thought to be the way that this murder happened. And so people encouraged him to go to the police to share this information, and he was arrested. So this was around the early 1980s, and I believe that Bill Dwyer might have been writing for the Wednesday Journal at the time, so that might be how he got some of these pictures over the years. There are different examples of just portraits of Steve Linscott, and then there's this one, which was taken, I believe, when he was arraigned and let out of jail, and he was later pardoned. So, because he was found not guilty. So that was just a little bit of a surprise, and that's the sort of thing that you have to look out for when you get donations like this. Is sometimes tucked away in the sleeve is a little bit more of a crazy story. I would use the word macabre. And I'm going to use that for this next slide as well, because if you came here to hear me talk about some teeth, I'm going to show you some teeth. So we got a donation from a person named Terry Powers, who lived in a house on Forest Avenue in River Forest. And Terry contacted me about a year ago, maybe more, saying that he was doing some renovations in his house. And I believe it might have been as dramatic as he took out a piece of drywall and a bunch of this stuff fell out of the wall. So he found a bunch of different sets of plaster casts of teeth. He found a couple sets of actual dentures and a bunch of different dental products of what you see on the left side of your screen. So this was a year ago or so, and I got very excited about hearing about this at the time, and I asked him if he would donate this stuff to us. And he said yes, and then 2020 got in the way, so we sort of fell off of each other's radar. And I was reminded of this recently, and so I just reached out a couple of weeks ago and asked him if he still had the stuff and was willing to donate it, and he said yes. He lives in Elmhurst now, but he came out to the museum with his little kids to give me this box of teeth. And in amongst these this jumble of different things was a little slip that I might have nearly thrown away. This label off of a prescription bottle was kind of my first clue of who this person would have been that's all these things related to. So you see on the slip on your lower left is the name Dr. Dumelow and the date 1942. So that I was able to look at the phone book from 1942, and I found that Dr. John Dumelow was living at the address of this house and practicing dentistry. So I think he was probably practicing out of his house at the time. This is one of the things that Frank Fiorito is looking into for me at the moment, or any other information that we can get about the doctor. But along with all of these different plaster casts of teeth, which some of them even have names carved into them, not too many names that I'm familiar with, but hopefully to be able to look into and tie to some local people. There were also a bunch of different examples of bottles of prescriptions and bottles of denture powder, or what I'm guessing is sort of like Novocaine drops or the like. What you see is a tube of tooth powder, which would have been, predating toothpaste. And my favorite is metallic solder that says it is waterproof and gasoline proof. So I really want to know more about what that means. But we have a bunch of different examples of these, including like an entire box of these tubes of tooth powder. So that's kind of my clue that he would have been practicing in his house at the time, because we have a lot of examples of these. So a very interesting story that came out of some very bizarre things. And it's always nice to have a little bit of bizarre in our museum. So I think that is all the stuff that I want to talk about as far as stuff that's been donated to us recently. And again, to give you some different samples of stories and subjects and different types of items and all of the sorts of things that come into the museum on a daily basis. We are getting things on a daily basis, and it is always fun to see what walks in. So today, September 16th, I want to mark this occasion because I think September 16th is a very important date to the museum. It is Philander Barclay's birthday. So we are very grateful for the work that Philander Barclay did, especially around the turn of the century to the man loved bicycles and the man loved photography. So he rode around on his bicycle taking photographs of buildings that existed, of some areas where buildings did not exist, and some things that still exist, some that no longer exist. So his collection of photographs, which is at the museum, is really our treasure trove to be able to tell more about the early days of Oak Park and River Forest and Forest Park and that sort of thing. So very grateful to him and just want to mark this occasion as his birthday. Because of Philander Barclay's birthday, we chose that date as the day to open our museum, which was 4 years ago today as well. So I want to mark that occasion and just say that I myself am so grateful to be here and to have this wonderful space to tell all of the stories about the different things that come in, to have a place that people can come into and bring us their stuff, and potentially be able to see it on display, and to do more research about the different stories that we have, and to celebrate the community that we are in. So I think that is all that I have to say at the moment. So I see some questions here, and I'm going to read through those. And if you have some more questions of today's program or things that you saw, etc., comments, then put them in the chat box for me, because I have some time and I'm happy to chat. Before I do that, though, I want to plug a couple of things that are happening at the museum and around town this next couple of weeks. So this Saturday, you do not want to miss, we are having Emily LeBeau-Lucchese, who's an author and educator, coming to the museum to do a program on her book, Ugly Prey. And the story behind this book is talking about the 1920s. There was a murder case where a woman was falsely accused of murder, and her lawyer was a young female lawyer from Oak Park. So a very close tie to our community and a very fascinating story. And Dr. Lucchese is a wonderful speaker as well. So you don't want to miss the program. Get your tickets on our website, or you can call or email me about it to save your seat. But we do have limited seating. So please, if you are hoping to attend, then get in touch with me. Next weekend, we're having a couple of walking tours. So on Saturday, we'll be having our West Side Stories walking tour in River Forest, and that's around the area of Thatcher Avenue and the like, and talking about the different houses and families and history in that area. And then on Sunday, the 26th, we'll be doing the last in this season. We'll be doing a west of the river walking tour of Forest Home Cemetery. So featuring some of the stories that we don't get to cover on our normal cemetery walks. So you don't want to miss that on the 26th. And I will remind everybody, speaking of which, that our annual cemetery walk, our Tales Our Houses Tell, is on October 17th. And that is a Sunday, and we'll be doing time slots as we were last year. So for more information about how to sign up, you can contact me or look at our website. But again, you will have to get tickets in advance. So please take a look out for that if you're planning to attend. And it's going to be very exciting. It's our 30th year of doing that. So all of that being said, I'm going to take a moment to read through some of your comments and see if you have any more. So my first question is, did any of the contributors to the literary tabula become writers anyone might have heard of, besides perhaps Hemingway? This, most probably. And again, I have to look, this is kind of a nice excuse to look into more of the years that we have of the literary tabula, because again, I'm just not sure if it's still a thing. I think it is. But especially in more recent years, I know of some different writers who might have been part of that may still be around town, you know, around the community. So how could we not? There's got to be at least somebody in there who would be a very interesting find, to find a very sort of maybe a boring poem or a cringy poem or something, and then they end up being somebody. And I have another comment I'll read through. So the metallic solder would be used for sealing leaks in tanks, carburetors, etc. I don't think it's safe as a dental material. Old fillings, including two in my mouth, used to be a silver mercury amalgam. Yes, I believe that. Um, so I'll look more into that, but I wouldn't be surprised if they used something similar for teeth. This would have been the 30s and 40s. So um, that's one more story that I want to share that's kind of funny about the donation of teeth and dental stuff. So I mentioned the donor was Terry Powers, and he brought his two young children when he came to the museum to give me these things. And one of his sons, who was about 4 years old, I would say, was very into the stuff that he gave to us, and he was telling me all about the different, sets of teeth and the different bottles of medicines and all of that stuff. And he looks up and says to me, "Watch for ones that have skulls and crossbones because those are dangerous." So I've been looking really hard for ones that have skulls and crossbones, but unfortunately I haven't found any. So I don't know. I mean, you're supposed to put all of this stuff in your mouth, supposedly, but I don't know what sort of things they knew or didn't know at the time about what we should be putting in our mouths or not. So that's going to be some fun research at some point as well. But thank you for this warning that we should know that that probably wasn't a good thing to put in your mouth. Always fun. So I think that is where I will end today's program. And I want to thank you all on the call for coming. And next Friday will be our Ask the Historians, our next virtual program for the month. And I believe, if all goes well, Frank will be back on the call to talk about the art piece that is now on display in the museum that he didn't get a chance to talk about today. So sign up for that, and I will look forward to seeing you next time. And thank you all for coming.